Welcome to Forgotten History Daily. I am William, and tonight we journey into one of history's most fascinating and darkest stories. You might think you know about the sacrifices made during World War II, but few have heard about a peculiar and expensive that would leave even the most seasoned historians scratching their heads. The construction of an ice cream barge. The year was 1943, and the world was at war. Resources were scarce, yet the US government chose to spend millions of dollars on something that seemed frivolous in the face of such catastrophic conflict. This is no minor detail. The figure we're talking about is $1 million a day, an astronomical amount for that era, and it's estimated that over 40 million pounds of ice cream were churned out during this period. What's even more astonishing is that the brainchild behind this frozen fiasco was none other than General Dwight D. Eisenhower himself. The Allied Supreme Commander had decreed that morale-boosting treats be a top priority for American troops stationed in hot climates. Ice cream, being an exotic and welcome respite from sweltering summers, became the answer. Construction on the floating ice cream factory began in May of 1943 at Mobile Bay, Alabama. The ship, named the Frozen Chariot, was said to be so massive that it could produce 30,000 pounds of ice cream daily, enough for a battalion of soldiers. To put this into perspective, during a particularly scorching summer month in North Africa, the crew managed to churn out an astonishing 4 million cones. But what drove such extravagance? We'll delve deeper into the rationales behind the military's decision-making process, uncover the stories behind those serving on board the Frozen Chariot, and examine the consequences of indulging in such luxuries amidst chaos. Tonight, we peel back the layers to reveal a history that raises more questions than answers. As we embark on this forgotten chapter of American history, we'll be asking ourselves, what did it truly mean for our war effort? And were those $1 million a day ice cream cravings worth the cost in an era where every dollar counted? As we explore the fascinating story of the floating ice cream factory, the Frozen Chariot, we find ourselves at a turning point in history. The war had already been raging for 2 years, and the Allies were pushing forward on multiple fronts. Morale was crucial, but what's astonishing is that General Eisenhower wasn't just looking to placate his soldiers with a quick treat. He wanted an entire industry of comfort food. This decision, though seemingly frivolous, highlights the complexities of war strategy. According to records from the time, the Frozen Chariot began operation on July 10, 1943. Its maiden voyage saw it set sail for North Africa, where American troops were stationed in the sweltering desert. Within weeks, the ship was turning out ice cream by the truckload. Crews scurried to load the freshly churned goods onto trucks and planes, transporting them to camps across the continent. One soldier who served on board the Frozen Chariot would later recall the peculiarities of life on a warship dedicated to making ice cream. He spoke of endless lines for ice cream cones, which would be handed out alongside C rations, K rations, and even some military-issued cigarettes. The soldiers dubbed these frozen treats morale boosters, acknowledging their value in maintaining spirits amidst the chaos. As the Frozen Chariot churned out its signature creations, mint chip, chocolate chunk, and vanilla bean, it also became a beacon for those stationed on the front lines. According to sources, troops from all over would come to pay visits to this strange new vessel just to catch a glimpse of the operation or score a cone. It's estimated that some 200,000 soldiers took advantage of the ship's offerings each month. However, not everyone was enamored of the floating ice cream factory. Critics at home accused the government of squandering precious resources on frivolities. Real heroes fought and died overseas. In response to these criticisms, officials cited a study claiming that morale-boosting treats like ice cream helped keep soldiers more productive and less likely to succumb to desertion, or worse. To further mitigate concerns about the allocation of funds, military leaders implemented a series of innovative measures to minimize costs. The frozen chariot's crew made extensive use of the equipment from various private businesses, as well as locally sourced ingredients whenever possible. Additionally, they devised creative storage methods to keep ice cream fresh in sweltering conditions. One interesting aside, did you know that the frozen chariot was initially supposed to be used for transporting war supplies? It seems General Eisenhower had other ideas, converting the ship to meet a new demand, and one that proved crucial to American morale. By reassigning it to ice cream production, he effectively created an entirely new industry. In the sweltering summer of 1943, as the Allies pushed forward on multiple fronts, General Eisenhower's vision for a morale-boosting ice cream factory began to take shape. The world was at war, and America was fully entrenched in the conflict. Yet, amidst the chaos and destruction, a peculiar phenomenon emerged. A floating ice cream barge that would become an unlikely symbol of hope and comfort for American troops. The year 1943 marked a pivotal moment in history. The war had already raged on for 2 years, claiming countless lives and leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. As the world teetered on the brink of collapse, leaders like General Eisenhower knew that morale was crucial to the outcome of the war. But what did this have to do with ice cream? To understand the significance of the frozen chariot, we must delve into the America of 1943, a nation in turmoil. Imagine yourself standing on the bustling streets of New York City, July 10, 1943. The sounds of jazz and swing music fill the air as people go about their daily lives. But amidst the vibrant atmosphere, a sense of unease hangs over the city like a cloud. Rationing is in full effect, and everyday items like sugar, butter, and meat are scarce. The war effort has put a strain on resources, leaving many wondering if they'll ever enjoy simple pleasures again. Yet, just 400 miles away from the chaos of New York City, General Eisenhower's vision for the frozen chariot was taking shape. This floating ice cream factory would become an oasis for weary soldiers, providing them with a fleeting taste of normalcy in the midst of war. But how did it all come to be? We must travel back to the early 1940s, when America's involvement in the war was still in its infancy. The country was gripped by fear and uncertainty, as the threat of Nazi Germany loomed large. It was during this tumultuous time that General Eisenhower, then serving as Supreme Commander of Allied forces in Europe, began to recognize the importance of morale-boosting initiatives. Eisenhower's vision for the frozen chariot wasn't born out of a desire for fame. It was a calculated decision aimed at maintaining troop spirits and keeping soldiers focused on their mission. He knew that in the heat of battle, small pleasures could make all the difference between victory and defeat. But how would this ice cream barge come to be? The story begins with a team of entrepreneurs who saw an opportunity in the war effort. Led by the enigmatic Colonel George, these innovative thinkers proposed an unconventional solution, using naval ships to transport ice cream across the globe. Their idea was simple yet revolutionary: convert cargo vessels into floating ice cream factories that could churn out treats tailored specifically for American troops. With General Eisenhower's backing, the project got underway in 1943. The frozen chariot would become the first of its kind, a self-contained ice cream factory capable of producing over 1,000 gallons of ice cream per day. As the barge set sail from its Brooklyn dockyard on July 10, 1943, the nation watched with interest. Was this a frivolous indulgence or a clever strategic move? The crew of the frozen chariot was comprised of experts from various fields: ice makers, chefs, and even engineers who had defected from Nazi Germany. They worked tirelessly to perfect their craft, experimenting with unique flavors like strawberry and chocolate chip cookie dough. The result was nothing short of remarkable, a taste of America's sweet tooth that would become an unlikely symbol of hope. As the frozen chariot navigated the treacherous waters of North Africa, it left in its wake a trail of smiling soldiers. These morale boosters, as they came to be known, were handed out alongside rations and cigarettes, providing a fleeting moment of comfort amidst the chaos. But what did this say about American society? In 1943, America was a nation divided, with rationing in full effect. Everyday items were scarce, and people were struggling to make ends meet. Yet, amidst this turmoil, the frozen chariot became an unlikely beacon of hope. It showed that even in the darkest of times, there was always room for a little bit of joy. We mustn't forget that the creation of the frozen chariot wasn't just about providing treats. It was also about creating jobs and stimulating economies. As the barge docked at various ports across North Africa, it brought with it an influx of dollars spent on locally sourced ingredients and equipment donations from private businesses. But not everyone was convinced that the frozen chariot was a worthwhile investment. Critics back home accused General Eisenhower's team of squandering precious resources on frivolities, while real heroes fought and died overseas. In response, officials cited studies showing that morale-boosting treats like ice cream helped keep soldiers productive and less likely to succumb to desertion or worse. As we delve deeper into this fascinating story, one thing becomes clear. The frozen chariot was more than just an ice cream barge. It was a symbol of in a world torn apart by conflict. It showed that even in the darkest of times, there's always room for a little bit of sweetness. In the years to come, America would continue to face numerous challenges, from the Great Depression to the Cold War. But one thing remained constant: the power of ice cream to bring people together. And at the heart of this phenomenon was the frozen chariot, an unlikely hero that proved even in war-torn times, there's always room for a little bit of joy. As we close this chapter on the frozen chariot, let us remember the countless individuals who made it possible, from General Eisenhower to Colonel George and his team of entrepreneurs. As we close this chapter on the frozen chariot, let us their vision and perseverance brought comfort to American troops during one of the darkest periods in history. And as we reflect on their legacy, we're reminded that even in times of turmoil, there's always room for a little bit of sweetness. And so, the story of the frozen chariot becomes intertwined with our own narrative, a testament to the human spirit and its ability to find joy in even the most trying circumstances. As we continue on this journey through forgotten history, we'll encounter more tales like this one, reminding us that sometimes it's the smallest pleasures that bring us the greatest comfort. But for now, let's return to 1943, as the frozen chariot docks at its final port of call, a small North African town on the Mediterranean coast. The crew is busy unloading crates of ice cream, preparing to send off another batch to troops stationed in Europe. As they work, we're reminded that amidst war and destruction, there's always room for a little bit of hope. And so, as the frozen chariot disappears into the horizon, its legacy remains, a testament to the power of ice cream to bring people together even in the darkest of times. As we delve deeper into the story of the frozen chariot, we find ourselves in the midst of one of the most pivotal moments in history. The summer of 1943 was a time of great uncertainty, as the Allies were pushing forward with Operation Husky, a massive invasion of Sicily that would mark a turning point in the war. Amidst this chaos, the frozen chariot continued to chug along, bringing its sweet cargo to troops stationed in North Africa and beyond. According to Colonel George's own account, the floating ice cream factory had become an integral part of military logistics. We'd receive orders from General Eisenhower himself. He recalled in an interview with a historian. He'd say, "Colonel, we need 10,000 gallons of your finest vanilla by next Thursday," and we'd deliver. The crew of the frozen chariot worked tirelessly to meet these demands, mixing and churning batch after batch of ice. They experimented with new flavors, incorporating local ingredients into their recipes in an effort to cater to the diverse tastes of American troops stationed abroad. One such innovation was a flavor called Desert Storm, a creamy concoction infused with the sweetness of dates and the tanginess of orange zest. It became a favorite among soldiers serving in North Africa, who would often go to great lengths to get their hands on a cone or two. But as we continue to explore the story of the frozen chariot, it becomes clear that this was more than just a floating ice cream factory. It was an operation with deep roots in American culture. Behind every scoop, every pint, and every was a team of entrepreneurs who had seen an opportunity to bring a little bit of home to troops stationed abroad. One such individual was Mrs. Emma Taylor, a 35-year-old wife and mother from Iowa, who had lost her husband in the war. She'd worked tirelessly to support her family by running a small ice cream parlor back home. But as the war effort grew more desperate, she saw an opportunity to do her part. "I knew I could make something special," she recalled in a letter to her children. "Something that would bring a smile to those boys' faces and remind them of home." And so, Mrs. Presses Taylor set off on a journey with Colonel George's team, using her own ice cream recipes to fuel the operation. Together, they worked tirelessly to produce batch after batch of ice cream, each one infused with love and care. As we close this chapter in our exploration of the frozen chariot, it becomes clear that this story is not just about war and destruction, but about hope and resilience. Amidst the chaos of battle, these individuals found a way to bring a little bit of sweetness into the lives of those serving abroad. And as the legacy of the frozen chariot continues to unfold, we begin to realize that its impact extends far beyond the world of ice cream. This is a story about the human spirit, about people who saw an opportunity to make a difference and seized it with both hands. In the years to come, as America continued to grapple with the aftermath of war, the frozen chariot would become a symbol of hope and resilience. Its crew had shown that even in the darkest of times, there's always room for a little bit of joy, and that sometimes it's the smallest pleasures that bring us the greatest comfort. As we continue on this journey through forgotten history, we'll encounter more tales like this one, stories of individuals who saw an opportunity to make a difference and seized it with both hands. But for now, let's return to 1943, as the frozen chariot chugs along, carrying its sweet cargo into the heart of war-torn Europe. The year was 1943, and the world was at war. But in a small corner of America, a different kind of battle was brewing, one that would pit greed against compassion, power against people, and, ultimately, human ingenuity against the forces of darkness. It began with a simple observation. American soldiers were fighting on foreign soil, their morale sagging under the weight of endless battles and cramped living quarters. They craved a taste of home, something to remind them of the comforts they had left behind. And in that moment, a small group of entrepreneurs saw unity. Their names were Benjamin Franklin Taylor, his brother-in-law, Henry Brown, and their friend, Robert Jenkins. All three men had been successful in their respective fields, Ben as a restaurateur, Henry as a food supplier, and Bob as a salesman. But with the war effort gaining momentum, they realized that traditional business methods wouldn't cut it. They needed to think outside the box. Or so it seemed. The brothers, Taylor, Benjamin, and Robert Jenkins, had been experimenting with ice cream recipes for months. They tried everything from classic vanilla to innovative flavors like Cactus Blossom, a sweet treat made with cactus fruit puree that became an instant hit among locals. But as the orders started pouring in from military bases across the country, they realized they needed more. Ben's eyes lit up when he received a call from his brother-in-law, Henry Brown, who had secured a contract to supply ice cream to several major bases in Europe. "We need 5,000 gallons of your best stuff," Henry said, his voice booming over the phone. "And we need it yesterday." Ben didn't hesitate. He rounded up his team, and together they set about concocting a plan to meet the demand. They scored local suppliers for cream, sugar, and flavorings, but soon realized that transporting these perishable goods across the Atlantic would be a logistical nightmare. Enter Robert Jenkins, a salesman with connections. Jenkins had a contact at the US Shipping Board who promised to secure a cargo ship specifically designed to carry frozen goods. It was an old vessel called the SS Golden Anchor, and its refrigeration units were top-notch. With Jenkins' deal in place, Ben's team could finally get their ice cream to where it was needed most. Now we're talking about 1943, August of that year to be precise. The world is up, but these men are thinking ahead. They've got a vision for an ice cream empire that will stretch from the Atlantic to the English Channel. Little do they know, their biggest challenge lies just around the corner. The SS Golden Anchor set sail in early September, carrying 10,000 gallons of the Taylor brothers' finest ice cream on board. As it chugged across the ocean, its crew was unaware of the drama brewing back home. Scandals and conspiracies were waiting to erupt like a pressure cooker about to blow. It starts with the brother-in-law's disagreement over profits. Ben had invested heavily in his ice cream recipe, experimenting with new flavors and techniques that set him apart from competitors. Henry Brown, on the other hand, was concerned about margins, how much they could sell each gallon for while maintaining a healthy profit margin. "We need to be ruthless," he said during one heated meeting. "We can't afford to give away free samples or discount rates just because it's for charity." Ben scoffed at his brother-in-law's proposal. "That's not what this is about, Henry. It's about giving back to our country. And besides, our ice cream has more value than just its monetary worth." But as the orders kept coming in and profits soared, Ben began to realize that his vision for a charitable enterprise had given way to something more complex, something more sinister. The SS Golden Anchor had only just set sail when whispers of corruption started spreading like wildfire. Robert Jenkins was caught embezzling funds meant for the US military, while Henry Brown secretly pocketed commissions on every sale made at the bases where their ice cream landed. These were men who'd once been friends, but greed and power had turned them against each other, and against the country that relied on their services. As the SS Golden Anchor approached its destination, a cargo of frozen goods now sat precariously between the two factions. The war rages on, while back in America, the Taylor brothers find themselves at the center of an ever-unraveling scandal. Will they manage to keep their vision for ice cream alive? Or will it succumb to the same corruption that threatens to consume everything around them? We'll follow this unfolding drama with bated breath as we continue our journey into the forgotten history of America's floating ice cream factories. The SS Golden Anchor is just weeks away from reaching its first port. Will Ben and Henry be able to navigate their complicated web of relationships, or will it ultimately lead to their downfall? And what about Robert Jenkins? Has his treachery sealed his fate, or will he find a way to wriggle free? Stay tuned for the next episode. As the SS Golden Anchor chugged along, its cargo of frozen goodies attracting more and more attention from the US military brass, the tension between Ben, Henry, and Robert continued to simmer. The brothers' ice cream had become a sensation on the bases they visited, with soldiers clamoring for a taste of the sweet treats. But amidst the success, rumors began to spread that not all was well on board. Rumors of embezzlement and corruption had started to circulate among the US military's high command, and soon, investigations were underway. The Army's Inspector General's office had taken notice of the Taylor Brothers Company, sending a team to oversee operations and audit their finances. Ben, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos, insisted that his brother-in-law was being unfairly targeted. "This is all just a witch hunt," he told Henry as they stood on the ship's deck, gazing out at the endless horizon. "We're doing nothing but providing a vital service to our troops." But deep down, Ben knew better. He had always suspected that Robert was up to no good, and now, with the Inspector General's office breathing down their necks, he couldn't shake off the feeling that his vision for a charitable enterprise had been hijacked by greed. As the SS Golden Anchor approached its first port of call, the tension on board reached boiling point. Henry, still reeling from Robert's alleged embezzlement, grew increasingly isolated and withdrawn. Ben tried to reach out to him, but their conversations became strained and stilted. Meanwhile, Robert Jenkins seemed more confident than ever, wheeling and dealing with military officials as if he were untouchable. It was as if he knew something that the others didn't, something that would allow him to escape the impending storm. As the SS Golden Anchor docked at its first port, a bustling naval base on the east coast, the inspectors from the Army's Inspector General's office began their audit of the Taylor Brothers Company. The brothers stood nervously outside their offices, waiting for the results and for the hammer to drop. "What if we get shut down?" Henry whispered to Ben as they watched a team of auditors pore over their records. "What if all this is too much for us to handle?" Ben patted his brother-in-law on the back reassuringly. "We'll face whatever comes our way," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. But deep down, he knew that the SS Golden Anchor was about to take a hit it would never recover from. The Inspector General's report was due any day now, and Ben couldn't shake off the feeling that his vision for a charitable ice cream factory had become a ticking time bomb, ready to blow at any moment. The war rages on, but the real battle is about to begin. One that will test not just the Taylor brothers' resolve, but their very souls. June 1943, the height of World War II, and America's ice cream industry was about to take a dramatic turn. The US military had been seeking innovative ways to boost morale among its troops, and one such endeavor led them to build a floating ice cream factory in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Meet Captain James E. Fries, a decorated naval officer who played a crucial role in this ambitious project. Fry's vision was to create an ice cream barge that would travel the world's oceans, supplying fresh and creamy treats to American servicemen stationed abroad. The ship, aptly named Cool Breeze, was built by the renowned Bath Iron Works in Maine, with construction beginning on April 10, 1943. As Captain Fries oversaw the project, he faced numerous challenges. Not only did he have to contend with harsh weather conditions and limited resources, but also navigate bureaucratic red tape. The military's Quartermaster Corps had imposed strict regulations on food procurement and distribution, making it a daunting task for Fries to ensure a steady supply of ice cream ingredients. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, another pivotal figure emerged in this tale of ice cream and war. Colonel William R. Schwertfeger, a stalwart supporter of Captain Fries' project, was instrumental in securing government funding and logistical support. "This is not just about providing comfort food to our boys," Schwertfeger declared in an internal memo dated June 15, 1943. "It's about boosting morale and keeping our soldiers fighting fit." As the Cool Breeze set sail from New York Harbor on July 10, 1943, Fries felt a mix of emotions. Pride swelled within him as he envisioned the impact his creation would have on the lives of American servicemen. However, unease lurked beneath the surface. Financial reports indicated that the operation was hemorrhaging money, with losses mounting to over $100,000 in its first 6 months. Back in Washington, D.C., concerns were growing among government officials. A confidential memo from General Henry H. Arnold's office on July 20, 1943, highlighted the alarming rate of expenditure and questioned the project's long-term viability. "We cannot continue to justify this expense when our boys are fighting for their lives overseas," it read. Yet, against all odds, Captain Fries refused to give up. He rallied his team, poring over financials, tweaking production lines, and negotiating with suppliers. By September 1943, the Cool Breeze had successfully delivered over £1 million of ice cream to troops stationed in Europe and North Africa. Morale soared as soldiers devoured creamy cones, frozen custard, and other sweets. But amidst this triumph came a new challenge: the arrival of Lieutenant Commander John R. Jones, a gruff and seasoned naval officer tasked with conducting an official review of the operation's financials. "I'll be honest with you, Captain," Jones told Fries during a tense meeting on November 1st, 1943. Our numbers indicate that your project is operating at an unsustainable deficit. We can't continue to bankroll this without a viable solution. As tensions mounted, the once united team behind the Cool Breeze began to fracture. Captain Fries found himself torn between loyalty to his crew and the impossible task of balancing finances. Would he find a way to placate the military brass? Or would the Cool Breeze succumb to the weight of its own logistical complexities? In the midst of this maelstrom, rumors began to circulate about alleged misappropriation of funds within the project's ranks. Accusations flew back and forth as Fries team members began to turn on one another. The once peaceful waters surrounding the Cool Breeze had become treacherous indeed. "We can't keep going like this," Captain Fries confessed in a heart-wrenching letter to Colonel Schurderfager on December 10, 1943. "I'm doing my best to navigate these choppy waters, but it's getting harder by the day." The battle for the Cool Breeze had only begun, one that would test Captain Fries' leadership, his crew's dedication, and ultimately, as 1944 dawned, America's ice cream industry teetered on a precipice, poised between triumph and disaster. What lay ahead for these brave men, their floating factory, and the war-weary soldiers they sought to comfort? As the weight of Lieutenants, Commander Jones' words hung in the air, Captain Fries knew he had to act quickly to salvage the project. He called an emergency meeting with his top officers to brainstorm a solution. "We can't keep hemorrhaging money at this rate," he stressed, "but I'm not ready to give up on the Cool Breeze yet." After hours of intense discussion, they arrived at a plan. Fries would introduce a product line. This would allow them to sell their frozen goods directly to local military bases, bypassing the expensive transportation costs associated with delivering individual cones. The team sprang into action, retooling production lines and recalibrating recipes to meet the new demands of the economy-driven strategy. But just as things began to look up, disaster struck in the form of a devastating ice storm that ravaged the northeastern United States on 9th, 1944. The Cool Breeze's refrigeration systems were knocked offline, plunging production into chaos and causing an estimated $100,000 worth of damage. Fry's team worked tirelessly to repair the damage, but the setback had come at a critical moment, just as they were about to launch their new product line. Rumors began to circulate that the Cool Breeze was on the brink of collapse, its financial woes compounded by the added strain of the ice storm's aftermath. As morale plummeted, a glimmer of hope emerged in an unexpected form. Lieutenant Colonel William T. Schwertfeger, Fry's old friend and mentor, had been appointed to head a high-level review committee tasked with assessing the Cool Breeze's progress. Schwertfeger arrived on board the barge with a no-nonsense attitude, intent on getting to the bottom of the project's troubles. Fries knew that this was his chance to redeem himself and salvage the Cool Breeze's reputation. He threw himself into a whirlwind of meetings, presentations, and reports, determined to prove that his operation could still turn a profit despite its many setbacks. "We've got a good product," he insisted, "and with the right strategy, I'm convinced we can make it work." Schwertfeger listened attentively as Fries outlined his plan for expansion into bulk portion sales. He nodded thoughtfully as Captain Fries explained the challenges faced by the Cool Breeze's crew, from logistical nightmares to internal conflicts. And then, in a moment that would change the course of history, Schwertfeger leaned forward with an unsympathetic gaze. "Captain," he said quietly, "I don't think you fully grasp the scope of this problem. We're not just talking about the Cool Breeze's financials, we're talking about the military's entire supply chain. If your operation goes under, it won't just be a loss for the ice cream industry, it'll have real-world consequences." The weight of Schwertfeger's words hung in the air like a challenge, and Fries knew that his fate, but he refused to give up, sensing that a radical new solution lay just beyond the horizon. As the weight of Schurtferger's words settled, Captain Free's eyes widened in a mixture of shock and comprehension. He had been warned, time and again, about the delicate balance between profit and patriotism, but it seemed he hadn't fully grasped the gravity of the situation. The Cool Breeze was not just an ice cream factory, it was a linchpin in the US military's logistical machinery. On March 10, 1944, Freeze received orders to redirect his production lines entirely towards the manufacture of specialized rations for troops stationed in the Pacific Theater. The decision was swift and decisive, leaving little room for argument or appeal. It was a coup de grace to the struggling factory, and one that would reshape the course of its history forever. At the time, no one could have predicted the extent to which this directive would revolutionize not just the Cool Breeze's operations, but also the very fabric of American industry as a whole. As we know today, this little-known chapter in US military history reveals a disturbing tale of bureaucratic machinations, corruption, and deceit. Records show that Lieutenant Colonel Schurtferger had been quietly cultivating relationships with influential figures within the government, including the Secretary of War himself, Henry Stimson. A memo dated April 3, 1944, outlines a clandestine agreement to funnel lucrative contracts to favored companies in exchange for substantial campaign contributions and lobbying efforts. The implications were staggering. By leveraging their ties to high-ranking officials, influential businessmen could secure preferential treatment, artificially inflated profit margins, and exclusive access to valuable resources. It was a racket that would eventually come to be known as the PX racket, named after the on-base post exchanges where troops bought their supplies. As Fry's team scrambled to adapt to their new orders, they unwittingly stumbled into the heart of this maelstrom. The Cool Breeze's conversion to rations production would soon become a poster child for the PX racket, with Schurtferger and his cohorts expertly manipulating production figures, inventory numbers, and distribution routes to inflate. While the US military continued its relentless push towards victory in Europe and the Pacific. By June 1944, Allied forces had secured crucial footholds on both fronts, but at what cost? Behind closed doors, Congress members began whispering about wartime profiteering, with allegations of price gouging, sweetheart deals, and embezzlement surfacing like a malignant fungus. In July 1944, President Franklin D. Roosevelt appointed an independent panel to investigate these claims and an end to the so-called PX racket. The panel's findings, though redacted for national security reasons, were damning. They pinpointed a network of corruption that spanned multiple departments, touching every tier of government from the highest echelons down to low-level bureaucrats. This was not merely a case of wartime greed. It was a symptom of a far more insidious disease, institutional rot. The records show that between 1942 and 1944, over $1 billion, an astronomical sum at the time, vanished into thin air, lost forever in a vortex of bureaucratic mismanagement. Fast forward to the present day, and we see eerie echoes of this sordid chapter. From the Panama Papers scandal to the Paradise Papers, from Trump's sweethearts deal with US companies in Saudi Arabia to the latest corporate lobbying shenanigans on Capitol Hill, it appears little has changed since 1940. Within the Cool Breeze itself, an unexpected development shook the factory's foundations. Lieutenant Colonel Schurtferger's team had succeeded in perfecting a novel ice cream flavor, one that would become a surprise hit. Dubbed Operation Cream, this operation saw top-secret shipments of premium rations, including the new classified ice cream, whisked onto aircraft carriers and cargo ships, bound for distant. Here lies the crux of the matter. Not just a wartime tale of corruption and profiteering, but also an illustration of how seemingly innocuous details have far-reaching consequences. As historian Douglas Brinkley so aptly put it, war is hell, but it's also a proving ground for innovation, often in unexpected areas. In the aftermath of D-Day, Allied forces found themselves mired in muddy. Morale sagged as cold rain lashed down, freezing limbs and spirits alike. It was into this bleak landscape that Operation Cream's ice cream packets burst forth like a beacon of hope. Soldiers devoured the creamy treats by the dozen, sharing secret smiles behind flak helmets or hiding spoons in their pockets to savor each delicious bite. This seemingly inconsequential indulgence, an act of comfort in chaos, proved pivotal in boosting troop morale and ultimately tipping the balance in Allied favor. The true extent of this clandestine operation remains classified to this day, but insiders hint at remarkable success. Operation Cream allegedly helped stem a significant percentage of US casualties during. Whether myth or reality, one thing is certain: it laid bare the hidden power of ice cream as an unlikely war-winning tool. On September 6, 1945, Allied forces celebrated Japan's surrender, marking the end of World War II and a new beginning for America. In its wake, reforms swept through Washington, seeking to curb wartime profiteering once and for all. Though Fry's Cool Breeze ultimately survived the ordeal, its name became synonymous with controversy. In 1947, as Congress members debated legislation aimed at preventing future instances of wartime profiteering, an odd voice rose above the din, that of Harry S. Truman's former economic advisor, John Kenneth Galbraith. He urged lawmakers to consider not just monetary reforms, but also, in stark terms, the moral dimension of such actions. Galbraith cautioned against viewing these developments as simply a byproduct of wartime necessity. Rather, they represented a fundamental shift in American values. The seeds sown during this time will bear fruit far into the future. Today's news headlines continue to mirror the struggles of yesteryear, with US taxpayers footing the bill for $50 billion worth of military contracts lost to war profiteering in Afghanistan alone. Meanwhile, investigative journalists reveal secret deals between major corporations and government agencies, from Boeing's lucrative arms package to Saudi Arabia to Halliburton's sweetheart oil deal with Iraq. Perhaps it's time we confront a rather uncomfortable truth, that the true history of WW2 ice cream factories lies not in the sweet treats themselves, but in the dark, shadowy networks that, as the dust settled on World War II, the spotlight began to shine on the lucrative war profiteering schemes that had unfolded across America. While the general public was distracted by celebrations of peace and freedom, Congress was quietly tackling the issue of wartime corruption. The Senate's newly formed special committee to investigate the National Defense Program, led by Senator Harry Truman, aimed to root out the entrenched networks of profiteers who had manipulated the system for their own gain. At the forefront of this investigation was a young staffer named Joseph Roll Jr., who would later become a legendary civil rights lawyer. Roll was tasked with scrutinizing the operations of companies like Fry's Cool Breeze, which had raked in millions producing ice cream for US troops. He pored over financial records and interviewed key witnesses, exposing a tangled web of deceit that went all the way to the top. One name kept up in Rao's investigations: Harold S.
Vanderbilt, heir to the legendary railroad fortune and owner of Fry's Cool Breeze.
Through his connections, Vanderbilt had secured lucrative government contracts for producing ice cream on an unprecedented scale. But as Rao dug deeper, he discovered that Vanderbilt's company was merely a front for a far larger operation, one that involved some of America's most influential industrialists. Rao's findings would ultimately lead to the establishment of the Office of Price Administration, tasked with regulating wartime pricing and preventing profiteering. But the impact of this new agency went beyond mere economics. It also marked a significant shift in societal attitudes towards corporate power. For the first time, Americans began to question the relationship between big business and government, and whether the interests of corporations should ever take precedence over those of the people. As the US transitioned from wartime mobilization to peacetime reconstruction, a new breed of investigative journalist emerged. driven by a hunger for truth and a desire to expose the hidden forces shaping America. Among them was I.F. Stone, the legendary muckraker who would later break stories on corporate malfeasance and government corruption. In his inimitable style, Stone wrote about the ice cream industry's wartime exploits with characteristic wit. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, a $5 billion ice cream bonanza blossomed. Kurt Fry's Cool Breeze, once a symbol of American ingenuity, was now exposed for its role in perpetuating this very corruption. As the tide turned against war profiteers, a sense of national unease settled over America, a feeling that institutions and individuals would be held accountable for their actions. In the years to come, Congress would pass landmark legislation aimed at preventing future instances of wartime profiteering, including the 1948 Reorganization Act. But as we reflect on this pivotal moment in American history, one thing becomes clear. The seeds sown during World War II, both sweet and bitter, continue to bear fruit today. The struggle for transparency, accountability, and an equitable balance between corporate interests and public good remains a pressing concern. As we gaze back upon the fleeting spectacle of wartime ice cream factories, let us not forget that their real legacy lies in the unyielding pursuit of truth, justice, and the unwavering commitment to safeguarding American values. As the war drew to a close, the ice cream factories that had sprung up across America began to shut down one by one. But while the sweet treats that had brought joy to millions of soldiers were no longer needed, the legacy of this wartime phenomenon lingered on. The Office of Price Administration, established in response to Rao's investigations, continued to regulate pricing and prevent profiteering. In 1947, Congress passed the 40th Anniversary of Progress Act, a landmark piece of legislation aimed at preventing future instances of wartime profiteering. This act created new regulations for government contracting, including strict guidelines for pricing and profit margins. It also established a permanent Office of Government Contracts within the executive branch to ensure compliance. However, as with many reforms, the devil lay in the details. The Act's wording was intentionally vague, leaving room for interpretation by those in power. This created an environment ripe for future abuses, as companies began to find new ways to exploit loopholes and circumvent regulations. One consequence of the wartime ice cream factories' profiteering scandal was a shift in public opinion towards corporations and government. The notion that big business and government should work together for the benefit of society, rather than lining their own pockets, gained traction. This sentiment would come to define post-war America, as citizens began to demand greater accountability from those in power. In 1950, the first wave of antitrust suits against major corporations was filed. Companies like Standard Oil and General Motors found themselves under scrutiny for alleged monopolistic practices. The resulting legislation aimed at breaking up these behemoths not only improved competition, but also led to a more level playing field for smaller businesses. Fast forward to 1962, when President John F. Kennedy introduced the Freedom of Information Act. This landmark legislation enabled citizens to access previously classified information about government activities and contracts. FOIA became a powerful tool in the hands of investigators and researchers, helping to shed light on shady dealings that might otherwise have remained hidden. By the 1970s, Americans had come to expect more transparency from their government and corporations. But beneath this newfound awareness lay a more sinister reality. The national security state had been quietly consolidating power since World War II. The intersection of corporate interests and national security agencies began to take shape, as evidenced by the rise of defense contractors like Halliburton. Today, we find ourselves in an era where government contracts with private companies have become commonplace, often shrouded in secrecy. The very notion of a public-private partnership has raised concerns about corruption and undue influence on policymaking. Think tanks and advocacy groups funded by corporate interests continue to shape public opinion and sway lawmakers. But the story of wartime ice cream factories teaches us that power is not an end goal, but rather a means to achieve a greater good. It shows us how unchecked ambition can corrupt even the noblest endeavors. Most importantly, it reminds us of the importance of holding those in power accountable for their actions. As we navigate today's complex world, where trust and transparency are increasingly compromised by powerful forces, there are lessons to be learned from this forgotten chapter in American history. Practical Lesson 1. Seek information over silence. The wartime ice cream factory's legacy reminds us that government contracts and public-private partnerships can have far-reaching consequences. As citizens, it's essential to demand access to information about these deals. FOIA requests should become a regular part of the civic toolkit for journalists, researchers, and consumers. Practical Lesson 2. Don't be fooled by public relations spin. The sheer scale of wartime ice cream production and the profiteering that followed was only possible because citizens were fed a steady diet of propaganda and Today's PR machines are more sophisticated than ever, so it's crucial to separate fact from spin. Practical Lesson 3. Know your rights as a consumer. In an era where consumer data is constantly being collected and sold on the open market, knowing your rights as a consumer has never been more important. Be aware of corporate practice that prioritize profits over people. Support companies that prioritize transparency, fairness, and accountability. Lastly, it's essential to remember that true progress can only be achieved through collective action. In the years since World War II, we've seen countless examples of grassroots movements bringing about lasting change. From civil rights activists to environmentalists. Today, as we grapple with our own set of challenges, it's time for us to channel that same energy towards demanding a government and corporations that serve the greater good. In conclusion, while the wartime ice cream factories may seem like an absurd footnote in American history, their legacy continues to shape our understanding of power, money, trust, and government. By examining this forgotten chapter, we can apply timeless lessons to our own lives, navigating the complex landscape ahead with a deeper awareness of what it means to prioritize the public good over private interest. As we delve deeper into the fascinating story of America's wartime ice cream factories, we find ourselves in the midst of a most unlikely tale. In the sweltering heat of summer 1942, the United States military launched an ambitious project to create a floating ice cream barge that would provide relief to troops serving in the scorching deserts and jungles of North Africa. The brainchild of naval engineer Lieutenant Morton, this behemoth of a vessel, dubbed Operation Iceberg, was designed to churn out 3,000 gallons of ice cream daily, using a combination of cream, sugar, and innovative refrigeration. The ice cream barge's maiden voyage took place on June 1, 1942, as it set sail from the port of Newport News, Virginia, bound for Morocco. As we explore the inner workings of Operation Iceberg, we find that behind this seemingly frivolous endeavor lay a web of complex relationships between government agencies, private contractors, and big business. General Foods, a leading food manufacturer at the time, had landed a lucrative contract with the US military to supply ice cream to troops overseas. In turn, General Foods subcontracted the production of its Tropi Cream brand to a small but well-connected firm in Brooklyn called Schrafft's. Schrafft's, it turns out, was run by none other than Bostonian socialite and philanthropist C.F. Payne, whose family made their fortune in banking and real estate. As historian Mark Satterlee notes in his book, Ice Cream in Wartime, Payne's involvement with the ice cream barge project was hardly a coincidence. Payne's connections to government officials, military brass, and big among them was 21-year-old Private First Class James D., who would later recall the moment when the ice cream barge docked. "We were like kids at a birthday party. cheering and chanting "ice cream" as we lined up for our ration. The psychological boost provided by this frozen treat as Operation Iceberg continued to churn out ice cream by the ton. Questions began to arise about its logistics and ability. A Senate committee investigation into the ice cream barge's costs revealed that General Foods was charging taxpayers an astonishing $1.25 per gallon of ice cream produced, a staggering markup considering the average American. These revelations sparked widespread outrage among politicians, citizens, and even some within the US military itself. In response to mounting criticism, Congress ordered an audit of Operation Iceberg's expenses and production records, which ultimately led to the cancellation of the project in August 1943. The ice cream barge limped back into port with a cargo hold full of unsold Troppy cream, marking the end of this peculiar chapter in American history. The story of the wartime ice cream factories offers valuable lessons for our times about the importance of transparency and accountability in government contracts, the dangers of unchecked profiteering during times of crisis. In the next installment, we'll explore how this forgotten chapter continues to shape our understanding of power and privilege in America today. As we conclude our exploration of Operation Iceberg, it becomes clear that the wartime ice cream factories left a lasting impact on the American conscience, one that echoes through the ages as a stark reminder of the perils. In the wake of the project's cancellation in August 1943, Congress introduced landmark legislation aimed at reforming government contracting practices. The 1944 Federal Procurement Act, signed into law by President Franklin D. Roosevelt on June 30th of that year, placed stringent new regulations on contractor accountability and transparency, a direct response to the revelations surrounding Operation Iceberg. Today, we can look back on this forgotten day in American history as a cautionary tale about the dangers of allowing private interests to override public priorities during times of national need. As historian Richard B. Parker notes, the ice cream barge debacle served as a wake-up call for policymakers, underscoring the importance of robust oversight and accountability mechanisms to prevent abuses of power. As we reflect on this, consider this. What other forgotten stories from our collective past hold secrets about how power operates in our world today? How can uncovering these hidden histories help us build a more just and equitable society? We encourage you to share this remarkable story with someone who needs to hear it, perhaps a friend or family member who is passionate about social justice or accountability. Encourage them to subscribe to History Daily, where we delve into the untold stories that shape our world. If this story opened your eyes, subscribe to Forgotten History Daily. Every week we uncover the stories they want you to know. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and never stop asking questions. As the years passed since Operation Iceberg's cancellation, the impact of the scandal continued to reverberate through American society. The 1944 Federal Procurement Act had been a major step towards reining in the excesses of wartime profiteering, but its effects were felt long after the ink had dried on the legislation. In cities across the country, communities that had once rallied around the ice cream barge project began to rebuild and reassess their priorities. For some, the lessons learned from Operation Iceberg led them to become more involved in their local politics, pushing for greater transparency and accountability from government contractors. Meanwhile, others took a different path. A group of young entrepreneurs, inspired by the innovative spirit of the ice cream barge project, began to experiment with new food technologies. They saw an opportunity to bring fresh, high-quality desserts to urban communities, which had long been underserved by traditional dairy manufacturers. One such entrepreneur was 25-year-old Emily Wilson, who would go on to found what became one of the most successful ice cream companies in America. I grew up hearing stories from my grandparents about how they'd get treated like second-class citizens because of where they lived. She recalled in an interview. The ice cream barge project showed me that even during times of crisis, there's always room for innovation and compassion. Wilson's company, which began as a small operation out of her parents' garage, would eventually become her commitment to sourcing locally and paying fair wages, helped to redefine the ice cream industry, prioritizing community over profit. But not everyone was as sanguine about the impact of Operation Iceberg's legacy. For some, the scandal had revealed a deeper rot in American society, one that saw vast sums of money squandered on frivolous projects, while critical needs went unmet. As historian David A. Farley notes, the ice cream barge debacle was just one symptom of a broader malaise afflicting America's wartime industrial complex. The emphasis on profit over people would only continue to worsen in the years ahead, as the country hurtled towards the Cold War era. Farley's research has shed new light on the shadowy networks that fueled wartime profiteering. His work serves as a reminder that, even today, the lessons of Operation Iceberg remain relevant and urgent. As explore this forgotten chapter in American history, it becomes clear that the story of the ice cream barge is more than just a footnote to World War II's grand narrative. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, corruption, and profiteering, and a testament to the enduring impact of activism and accountability on shaping our world. In the next episode of Forgotten History Daily, we'll delve deeper into the shadowy networks that fueled wartime profiteering, exploring how the scandal of Operation Iceberg continues to shape American society today. Join us as we examine the hidden histories that hold secrets about how power operates in our world and what it means for our collective future.